Mr. Brown.
If you have zero vices, you're playing yourself. Vices are the things that have a hold on you. And as a matter of fact, the definition of vice is immoral or wicked behavior. I want you to know that you have vices in your life that you are trying to ignore, rip out of you, not trying to have access to, trying to overcompensate to get rid of a vice, which is then causing more problems in a different part of your life. Vices are in your life simply because you are human. You are having a human experience. It is only right that some part of you is not always good. The universe is a give and take. It's a yin and yang, karmic circle. So understand that you will have goods and bads within inside of you that you have to explore and understand. I think the only way you can be of any sort of value and presence to people that come in your life and people that you try to speak to or have engagements or have relationships with is if you fully understand yourself and what you're capable of. You shouldn't go through life thinking like, hey, I have this bad thing that I do and I really don't like it, so I'm just gonna try to cover it up and sweep it under the rug so that nobody knows, even myself, or try to hide it from yourself. No, explore your vibe. Only way you can conquer something if you know what it is. If you have no clue about what the f is troubling you or what you're trying to hide from, you're gonna have no clue of who you are and what you're really capable of. The full capabilities of who you are can only be shown if you follow and figure out what your vice is. And when I tell you follow your vice, when you get to these dark spots, when you get to these really, really low lows, your back's against the wall, you don't know what to do, you're a bit confused, a bit angry at yourself maybe, instead of harboring all of that anger inside, not knowing how to get rid of it, not knowing how to let it roll off your back or distribute it into a different part of your life so that you can start to muster up the strength and the energy to get through this hard time, you need to lean towards your vice. And here's why. Your vice will teach you about how deep and dark you can become. And when you get to these places where you need to fight life, you will need to become a dark human being. Very dark. Because when you're in the dark, you can't just be this light bulb in the dark. It's just not gonna work. You're gonna need to see the light. So understand where the light is, but allow the formation of the darkness to come upon you so that you can then recreate yourself and get the fuck up out of there. Now, translate. Take all of the dark times, understand them for what they are, and lean on your vices to get out of them. Take the vices, the bad behavior, the moral thinking, all of the things that contribute to you having your vice or your vices, and feed them. Because that will help you fight your way out. If you have a girl problem, you have a smoking problem, you have a liquor problem, you have a way of cursing people out too much, you have a way of getting angry, you have a way of a loose temper, you have no patience, over brutally honest. Vice can be whatever, only you know your vice. It's that dark, immoral, wicked thing that you know that you're capable of. And when you get into these dark times, when you get to these times where you feel like no one else is hearing you, when you get to this time where, hey, even God might have you on delay, right? And you're just in the dark and you don't know what the fuck to do. Being happy-go-lucky in the dark is not gonna help. For some, it may work. For me, that definitely doesn't work. You need to shut your whole entire system off and figure out and pinpoint where that light is. Now, when you understand where that light is in this dark tunnel, do any and everything to get the fuck out without having any sort of long-term destruction to your life. Whatever that is. Because sometimes your vices are the only thing you can lean on that will give you a little bit of feel-good spirit while you're in the dark. Because a feel-good spirit doesn't come often when you're in the dark. It doesn't. And hey, you know what? It shouldn't. Because the dark's gonna mold you. And when you start to really discover how deep and dark you can become while you're in that darkness, it only helps you when you get back out in the light. And so don't think like, oh, I need to go crazy and overly indulge in my vices. Oh, sure, definitely indulge in them because you need to know what they are. So you need to at least experience them and say like, oh shit, okay, I actually like that, right? And then once you fully understand, once you really get a grasp of how dark you can become, and how wicked you can get as a human, understand it, and then start to translate it into who you are and the fibers of your being. And once that's ingrained in you, you can always call and summon it at any time. Because when you're in the light and life is happy-go-lucky, when you start to buck up against these hard times, or even maybe it's a hard human that you're up against. Maybe life is beating your ass, not with your own experiences, but with people, or your own experience directly, but with people going through their experience and then them putting all of the fucking pressure and negative energy on you. How do you combat it? So if I know I can rip you to shreds, if I know I'm a very dangerous human, if I know that I can let a loose cannon off with my verbally, if I know that I'm able to inflict harm on others very quickly, always leave that as an undertone when you're having these issues with other people or when life starts to whoop your ass. Need your vice to teach you who and what they are, so that when you get to a place where you are in a good light, you will always understand that there's this little thing in you that you can pull out. It's like the venom in the Spider-Man movie. That's a vice that's taking over. And you see how capable you become when you allow your vice to really take over sometimes? You become a very capable human. You start to do things you ordinarily wouldn't. And then that uncovers other parts of you that you otherwise wouldn't have seen or understood if you tried to sweep it under the rug. A lot of people get timid, right? And that's all of us, bro. There are vices in my life that I've tried to ignore for years, that I uncover, and now that I've uncovered them, it's almost like they teach you something. And it's not that you need or want to be inflicting pain or like suffering into the world, or even like indulging in your vices to the point where you can have no return, but it's at least you're doing your vice. You're using your vice to teach yourself something about life. And we don't know what we're learning as we go through it sometimes. Sometimes you're going through life and you only have your vices to lean on because it's the only thing that you feel is new in a dark time. People lean on their vices for all sorts of reasons, right? You never know. But if you're one of those people who swept it under the rug for years, if you're one of those people who hide from themselves, if you're one of those people who don't understand what you're capable of, I beg you to sit there and write down the things that you feel are immoral or wicked in behavior, think that you're capable of, but you hide from it because you're scared of what the repercussions may be if you like it. Your vice is so strong, or your vice, you're so curious about your vice that you become so timid that you leave it untouched because you're scared of what you may become once you allow it to the forefront of your brain. But I want you to know that once you explore your vice, nobody can tell you anything about yourself. You're gonna know yourself better than anybody else knows. Vices included. No one can tell you shit about your life. No one can give you advice on how to operate because you are the only one who lives in the shoes that you live in. And sometimes the only way you can fully activate yourself is if you understand how dark you can be. You remember when in the Batman movie where Bane was like, you merely adopted the dark, I was born in it? That's because what Batman leans on as a vice, or maybe it's trying to be dark and trying to be this character, you only can lean on it for so long. If you weren't that for the duration of your life, and if you don't understand what that is, then bro, you can't say that that's you for real. Bane, if he was from the dark, that's because he was born in it, built in it, shattered by it, recreated by it, and adopted it as his own, and can now be this vicious and as ungodly and unruly as possible, right? But if you're Batman, it's like you go into the slum, you go into the dark, and you don't even know how to get up through that chamber, that tunnel. So like I was saying before, you only need to see the light. And if you look up, referring to the movie now, if you're at the bottom of that pit, you look up and the only thing you see is light. But down in the pits, it's darkness, bro. You can only survive if you accommodate or if you acclimate to your surroundings. And sometimes your surroundings are going to be very dark, and you're going to have to acclimate, and you're going to have to unleash that vice that you've been sitting on, right? That darkness within you, right? And then on top of that, remember when he's climbing up and trying to get out the tunnel, but everyone has the rope, and the rope is what stops you, right? So sometimes you need to release yourself of all the goodwills that you may think that you have, right? Because all of these things that we go through, your experience in life has taught you to be and act and operate and categorize things in your life as good and bad, right? And as you go through life, you're gonna have to start to release the understandings of what good and bad are, because you realize that what and who taught you what good and bad is may not be exactly what good and bad truly is. So you have to fully understand what you're doing and how you're going to operate in this life, because sometimes what you perceived as good is bad, and what you perceived as bad is actually good and can be advantageous to you going forward in life. And all that is when you start to understand who and what made your morals, and who and what molded the structure of what you perceive as bad, you then will start to reconfigure yourself to understand that, maybe this isn't so bad. Maybe I need to take some of these things out and put them into good because they're good for me right now. They're good for my circumstances. They're good for the outcome that I'm looking for. They're good for getting through what I'm going through right now. They're good for crawling out and getting out of that pit. They're good for fighting in the dark because that's the only thing I get to lean on. Figure out your vice. Don't just take it for granted, bro. Because people will try to clown you. People will try to play you. People will try to deem you as wicked. People will try to do all sorts of shit. You see the direction society's going in. Come on now. Understand that you have to make and build your own understanding of not only what your vices are and how to control them, but also what's good and bad to you and how you need to operate when you're in the slums. And when I say in the slums, when you are at rock bottom and life is whooping your ass. How do I get out of it? How do I build out of this? How do I find a way out? How do I draw up and get through the ladder? How do I maneuver myself out of this position that I'm in? You have to fight, bro. And sometimes the only thing that you have to lean on that will give you the proper strength in darkness and killer mode instinct that you need is that vice that you've been running from. Uncover it, understand it, figure it out, dissect it. Do it enough times so that you understand exactly what it does to you. This doesn't mean you need to be stuck in your vices, but you need to at least know what the fuck they do. What is the abilities that it gives you? What are the hindrance that it does to you? Because when the definition says immoral and wicked behavior that is on a basis of someone and something, but that someone and something is you. What is good and bad? You inherently know what good and bad is, but hey, maybe sometimes you need to reevaluate and see, is that the life I wanted to live? Is that where I wanted to be? Is that how I want to operate? Is that how I want to remain? Maybe not. The life that you want to live is going to require a lot of imbalance. So fight your way out. Even think about this. The balanced person is going to call the imbalance of someone else's life wrong. That doesn't mean it's wrong. That means that balance that's within your life is good for you. And sometimes that imbalance that you have, that other people are frowning you and telling you that's bad, is what's good for you, the rocket fuel to accelerate you to the next level. Double down. Understand who you are. And the only way you understand who you are is if you start to dissect every part of you, vices included. Boy, Mr. Brown.